Hi everybody! I'm so excited tonight. We are going to be making cheesecake with a maple pecan glaze on top. And I'm going to show you how I make my pecan cinnamon crust. So whenever I make a cheesecake, the first thing I do is start with the crust, because I always put my cheesecake crust in the freezer while I make the filling to get it nice and set, so I don't throw it into a super hot oven and it just melts apart. So I start with this crust, which I have a lot of different crusts that I do, but with this crust, I'm starting with 1 2/3 cup of graham cracker crumbs. Really, you can use any brand is fine. I tend to use Keebler. I don't know why. I think it's just because I always use them. But sometimes I'll grind up my own graham crackers. So it really doesn't matter. That's probably pretty good too. Sometimes I use chocolate graham crackers and I grind those up in my food processor or my Ninja. So any kind of graham crackers, 1 2/3 cup. And I'm going to add my finely chopped pecans. I just threw them in my Ninja, which is also a food processor, if anybody doesn't know that who has a Ninja blender. Just throw it in there. We're going to put all the dry ingredients in first. I have 1 1/2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. And I have 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm a big believer in most situations that dark and light brown sugar really don't make a difference, honestly. I don't taste the difference. Sometimes I even have them mixed in my container. If a recipe calls for dark, it may be because they want more intense flavor, and I would, go with that. But in they go. I'm just gonna mix that up a little bit. Use a spoon, a whisk, whatever you'd like to use. I just use my rubber scraper and get it there. And then I'm going to add 1/2 cup, which is 1 stick, of melted butter. That's going to hold everything together. A lot of recipes when you're baking call for unsalted butter. Not really a big fan of unsalted butter. It's just my preference. I like the way salted butter tastes better, even in my frosting recipes. I really don't ever use salted or unsalted butter rather. So get that mixed up really nicely so everything is wet. Really make sure your brown sugar is mixed in there. Sometimes you have to chop it up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to fill my cheesecake pan. Cheesecake pans are also called springform pans because they have a spring that opens up the bottom so you can take it out. It's obviously not like a cake that you can turn upside down. So a lot of people, are wondering, well, if I want to bring this to somebody's house, I don't want to bring the bottom of my springform pan. I'll never get it back. What I do a lot is line it just with aluminum foil. I'll just lay the piece right on here, put this over it. The aluminum foil sticks out over the sides. And when you bake it just like that, and when you're totally done, your cheesecake is completely chilled. The crust is going to get pretty solid. You can lift it right off, peel off the aluminum foil and put it on a special plate, or you can put it on a little cardboard disc, little cake drum. Lots of you guys watching are customers of mine, so you've seen the little cardboard discs I put the cakes on. They're at Michael's, super easy. Keep a couple in the house, and then you can take it to potlucks at church or work or wherever you'd like to take it. So I am going to add the crust now. So I'm adding the crust now, getting it all in there. And really just to, we want to press this down, press it up a little bit on the sides. I honestly just use, this is my favorite cup for making cheesecake crusts. You can use anything that has a smooth bottom and a nice edge, just to press it in. So I just even it out, kind of get a nice even layer. Just press down. If you get a hole, just pull some in and press down. Give yourself a little side. you want things to be pretty even. It doesn't have to be perfect. I like to make it as perfect as I can because presentation is definitely a big thing when you're selling any kind of baked good. Something can taste good, but if it doesn't look good, that can make a big difference. All right, there she is. All packed down, brown sugar, cinnamon, finely chopped pecans, graham cracker, and of course butter. All right, I'm gonna throw her in the freezer. She's gonna set pretty quickly while I make the filling. All right, let's make the filling. This is actually a really simple filling, really simple cheesecake. Cheesecake I don't think is hard to make. I think the problem that people have is knowing when to take it out, which I'll give you guys some pointers on that. It does take a little bit of practice, kind of getting to know your oven, your recipe. One thing that really helps in baking is if you have a thermometer in your oven that you can buy at Ace Hardware, Lowe's, any kind of hardware store, just to know that your oven is truly at the right temperature. But we are going to start with 4 8-ounce packages of cream cheese. These look a little bit different because I like to buy the Philadelphia cream cheese loaf from Costco. This is not a plug for Costco, but I wanted to help you guys out. Cream cheese can be expensive, and in a cheesecake you want to use really good quality cream cheese. If you find another brand that you like, I know Cabot makes a brand. If you like the way it tastes, then use it in your cheesecake. I prefer Philly. I've always used that for my cheesecakes. So I'm going to put that in. It's room temperature, which is important. It's really hard to mix cream cheese and sugar and eggs and really get it mixed well when it's cold. So we're going to turn on the mixer for a minute and let it go. Once it has a little few seconds mixing, I like to just push it down with my rubber spatula, get everything back down into the center. I think that's really important so everything gets mixed well. I will end up probably with a bunch of this on me. I'm a very messy baker. My husband always says that I can mess up a kitchen like nobody else, but I can clean it up faster and better than anybody else because I do like a clean kitchen. Let's mix it a little bit more. All right, we're gonna add our sugar. So we've got the 4 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese in here, and I have 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar. I think granulated sugar is one of those things that is good store brand or name brand. I like quality ingredients, but I've never really found a sugar I didn't like when it came to granulated sugar. I think when you get into powdered sugars and different things like that, then definitely be a little more picky. But let's mix this and get it nice and fluffy. Very nice. Give it a little scrape down. I always forget to open that up. Love my KitchenAid. I've got a couple of KitchenAids. You guys saw me paint the other one recently, but having a couple of KitchenAids or a couple of KitchenAid bowls is so helpful when you're making a lot of stuff. And in my case, there's a lot of baking in my kitchen. So our next ingredients are 3 eggs. I always crack eggs in a separate bowl because if you have a rotten egg, you don't want to ruin your whole mixture up here, especially with the cheesecake because cream cheese is expensive. So we're going to put it in one at a time so it mixes really well through. Kind of slow. All right, we're going to scrape down the sides. We want the egg to really mix well. Now with many of my cakes, you'll hear me say don't over mix, don't mix too long. With something like this, cheese and sugar and the eggs. You don't have to worry too much about that. Obviously, you wouldn't want to mix it all afternoon, but you want to get a nice mixture going. So we're starting to get that creamy cheesecake batter look. See, it's nice and getting nice and thick. Such a gorgeous batter. It tastes really good too before you put the eggs in. All right, let's see, a couple more ingredients. I have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, which is going to help to thicken it a little bit, and I have a tablespoon of vanilla. We're just going to add both of those in. My cornstarch doesn't want to all come out. All right, get that mixed in well. I do it on a little lower speed so the cornstarch doesn't poof everywhere. Great. Scrape down our sides. Make sure everything is getting a chance with the beater. All right, our last thing, our magic ingredient, a cup of sour cream. I've got to be honest with you, I cannot tell the difference between regular sour cream and the light sour cream. I've only ever tried the Daisy light sour cream, but my husband and I love it, and it is so much less calories. And with baking, you won't find me scrimping much with calories. I think a really good bake has full fat, you know, all that kind of stuff, sugar, everything that's not good for us. But really, I've tried it with cheesecake, and you can't tell the difference. But when buying light things like that, I do like to buy the name brand, so I do stick with Daisy. All right, let's just give that a little toss. Not too much. Just to flip it around in there. Very good. Scrape everything off. Now I do this with my cakes too. I like to take the bowl off and give it a good toss, getting right down at the bottom. Because as wonderful as KitchenAids are, sometimes there can be some stuff stuck. And you know what I'm finding is some cream cheese at the bottom that didn't get mixed. So I'm going to use my other ripper scraper, which is a little stiffer. Just really toss it around. Especially with cakes, because you don't want big blobs of sugar in your cake. Wonderful. I'm going to go grab the crust out of the freezer, which I'm sure is set by now, and then we'll fill it. All right, she's out of the freezer. She's gorgeous. She's nice and solid. The butter is hardened in there. So we are just going to pour our filling right in. Love this part. I just think it looks so pretty and appetizing and gorgeous. Can't go wrong with a cheesecake. You bring a cheesecake to a friend's house, if you're providing dessert, everyone will be your best friend. Sometimes all my daughter wants for her birthday is a cheesecake. I loved cheesecake growing up. All right. We are good to go. The crust just peeks over the top. It's perfect. We'll put her in the oven, and I will see you guys in about an hour and 15 minutes. Our cheesecake is out of the oven. It looks perfect. It's a little poofed up, which is very normal with a cheesecake. As it cools, it'll start to settle down and end up nice and even and flat. Sometimes, you know, you get a little golden. That's totally fine, totally normal. You'll notice the middle, when I move it, has a nice little wobble, but the whole thing is wobbling together. What you want to avoid when you're trying to determine whether or not to take your cheesecake out of the oven is you don't want the middle to wobble more than the outside. So you notice it's completely the same throughout. If you get a little bit of cracking on the outside, it's really not a big deal. The way to avoid that is using a bain-marie or a water bath, which is easy and simple. I don't typically do it with this recipe. I don't really think it's necessary, but I've done it with other recipes and it's very easy. But what we're gonna do now is just let it cool. Once things get a little bit cooler, it's very hot right now, we'll put her in the refrigerator and just leave it overnight. I won't put the topping on until it's cool, but I'll definitely make the topping ahead of time because, you know, toppings that are cooked on top of the stove obviously get very hot, and you don't want to put a hot topping on a cheesecake either. So we will leave it overnight, and I will show you guys how to make the topping. All right, so let's make the topping. I have 1/4 cup of butter in the pan, which is half a stick of butter. I'm using salted butter, like you guys know. I prefer it over the unsalted. We're gonna let that start to melt, and I am going to add 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Make sure that it's packed. You measure it. And I have sort of a mixture of light and dark in here. I don't really think it matters that much. You can use either one. Of course, you don't have to mix it like I did. That's just the way I had it. I have it on medium heat. We don't want to melt the butter too quickly and get it burning at all. But what we want to do here is bring this combination to a boil. So once things start to melt, you can pull it up or raise the temperature a little bit more. It doesn't take very long to make this happen. All right, things are coming to a boil. See how it's really starting to bubble. I don't want to let it burn. So once you've got quite a boil going, lots of bubbles rolling pretty well, you are going to add 1/4 cup of real maple syrup. Give you a nice little boiling noise there. Bring it to a boil again. Let it all mix together really well. It smells so good. Let it boil up a little bit. Now we are going to add our cream, 1/4 cup of heavy cream. Give that a nice stir. Till it's completely incorporated. Make sure everything's, the sugar's melted really well. I'm gonna give it a little toss with my whisk. All right, we're gonna turn off the heat. Take it off the heat. All right, calm down a little bit. So we are gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of maple extract. You know, there's a lot of maple syrup in this, but maple extract gives it a little extra flavor, a little more sweetness. Tastes more like maple candy than pancakes. So we've added our extract off the heat, and now we will add 1 cup of chopped pecans. I did sort of a larger chop. I don't, you know, you don't want it chopped finely unless you prefer that. Obviously, it's totally fine. But you know, you want some substance in it. Sometimes when you chop the pecans too finely, it can taste a little granular. And with this maple caramel concoction we've made, so right into the maple, just give a little stir. And then we're gonna set it aside, let it cool down a little bit, and then I'll put it in a bowl, put it in the fridge. And then I will assemble both of these tomorrow once they've cooled a little bit more. The maple glaze that we made, it's not going to totally solidify. It's a nice, nice consistency. Definitely not as liquidy as this. but it still has a nice consistency, and the flavor is just out of this world. Those of you who follow me on Facebook probably saw my post about how amazing the flavor was. It's just, you can put it on an ice cream. I put it on a birthday cake the other day on top of a maple cake. It's just so yummy. So let me know if you try out this recipe. Definitely give it a try. Cheesecake can take a little bit of practice. Don't let it scare you. A couple of times you get to know your oven, you will wow anybody at a party with cheesecake. It's easy, it's simple, and people love it. Thank you so much for watching me, guys. I will talk to you soon.